Bojon Ninui Magana Dog, Mno Chige, Twyla Indigenacas. Welcome to the Twyla Zone. I wanted to share with you this morning some thoughts that I've been having. Regarding how we move forward. I've been listening to the Telepathy Tapes podcast, which has really opened my eyes and my mind to the power of our ability to communicate with our consciousness and therefore maybe other people's consciousnesses. And I think that these phenomena, these openings are part of our human evolution. I saw an advertisement this morning for a Gaia film talking about super consciousness and how to get there and what it means. And while I applaud that effort, I also worry that if we are not practiced in how to give and receive grace, our super consciousness journey will be difficult and perhaps not the result that we think we're going to have. In other words, we're not doing the work, we're just taking the shortcut. Now, we live in very, very difficult times, and you might wonder why I'm spending any time at all talking about giving and receiving grace. Maybe you don't, but what I want to say to that is our best defense, I think, in my opinion, our best defense is to be strong spiritually, is to be strong in our grace, is to make sure that if we are building a path toward a super consciousness as individual sovereign human beings, that we do it in a good way. And this is where I think the 7 grandfather teachings come in very strongly to help us make sure that we stay grounded while we develop our super consciousness. And both things are necessary for a better future for ourselves. We live in a time where some people who currently have power or think they have power, okay, they have a lot of power, have taken the shortcut to what might be referred to as a super consciousness or a super awareness, using, pharmaceutical drugs and other methods. And for me, that's a perfect example of how if you don't do the work, the spiritual work, developing your grace muscles, understanding who you are as a sovereign human being with in the framework of the 7 grandfathers teachings, that while we might be developing a superpower, are we a superhero or are we becoming a supervillain? So I want to make sure that everyone is really clear that this work that I'm doing, I'm not in any way ignoring what's happening. I'm very aware and it is affecting me, but I'm doing my spiritual part in that work and also making my hands available where they could be used. So all that said, I am very excited about the fact that over the past couple of weeks, I have received so many texts, messages, IMs from people sharing with me other people out in the world who are talking about grace, who are using the word grace. And for me, that is so amazing. It is a strong indicator to me that it's working, that the work that you guys are doing when you watch these videos and the work that I'm trying to put out in the world, it's working. We are making a difference. And so I want us to definitely remember that it's important to keep moving in that direction and doing it in a good way. So I wanted to also, this is going to sound kind of out of order, and that's because it actually is, but I was reading something the other day in my meditations, and reading a book written by Megan Watterson, and she was talking about and if you're not familiar with Megan Watterson's work, she has done a lot of work around Mary Magdalene and kind of uncovering who she is or who she was, and the gifts that she was intended to bring to the world. And there was a statement that I thought was really powerful. The ego can't recognize the soul. The ego can't see or recognize the soul. And when I first read that, I immediately lit up thinking, oh, that totally makes sense. And then I thought about it and I was like, well, it kind of has to. Like, they can't exist mutually exclusive of each other if they're in your consciousness. And I think there are some nuances to that. I think that what that really means is that the ego may see or recognize the soul, but the ego is very selfish, and for a good reason. The ego is there to protect us. It's like the knight, but it operates without regard for the soul. And so that's something that we need to, I think, would be very good for us to consider when we are doing this work, when we are expanding our consciousness, developing our superpower, and building bridges between our communities on this soul level. That, yeah, we're going to run into the ego, and the ego is not necessarily a bad thing. You don't want to beat the ego down, but just understand that the ego is doing what it can to protect you, and it'll do the work without regard for the soul. So you have to build up the soul to make sure that the soul, your soul work, gets that space. So I think that's all that I wanted to share with you guys. I am getting ready to head into the office today. It's a beautiful day. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful day here in the Pacific Northwest. I am very excited to spend some time with Mno Chige and to be able to do some yard work. But always, I encourage you to breathe, to explore your soul and do it in a good way. Remind yourself of the 7 grandfather teachings, and know that the world looks really, really fucked up, and it is. And our work is to be the light in this fucked up world. And we do that by developing our grace and developing our soul work and making space for healing and forgiveness in a good way. So, Bama P, I will touch in later. Please, if you find this helpful, and if you are also seeing, these little pieces of evidence that grace is becoming more present in your world, drop me a comment, let me know, and continue to share with others this idea that grace is our superpower. So, miigwech, ki miigwech. Have a good day. Bama P.